Today, we're going to talk about one of the most powerful and, honestly, most misunderstood forces in the entire universe. It's called compounding. And it's this quiet engine that shapes, well, pretty much everything, from how our planet looks to how people build massive fortunes. And it all kicks off with one kind of strange question.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like a joke, right? But stick with me, because the answer connects these two totally different things in a really profound way. By the end of this, you're going to see that the exact same powerful principle is driving both.
So, our story doesn't start in some fancy Wall Street office. Nope. It starts billions of years ago, with a huge, planet-sized puzzle, the Ice Ages.
For the longest time, scientists figured that to freeze the entire planet, you'd need some massive, crazy event, like giant volcanoes all erupting at once. But the real answer? It was way more subtle. The thing that triggered the Ice Ages wasn't brutally cold winters, it was just moderately cool summers. See, if a summer isn't quite warm enough to melt all of the last winter's snow, you're left with this little reflective layer of white. Well, that leftover snow acts like a tiny mirror, bouncing a little bit of sunlight back into space. This cools the area just a tiny bit more, which makes it even easier for more snow to stick around the next year. A tiny advantage becomes the fuel for future growth. That, right there, is compounding in action.
And this just nails the whole idea, doesn't it? You don't need one giant, heroic push to make something happen. All you really need is a small, consistent advantage that just keeps building on itself, over and over again. That's how a little bit of leftover snow can eventually become an ice sheet, miles thick.
Okay, so keep that Ice Age idea in your head. Now let's take that exact same principle and jump over to a totally different world, the unbelievable success of investor Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett's net worth is, it's just a mind-boggling number, around $84.5 billion. And when we see a number that big, our brains immediately jump to conclusions, right? We think, wow, that must be the result of some singular genius, or just a series of brilliant, high-stakes moves. But what if that's not really the whole story?
Well, check this out. Of that massive fortune, $84.2 billion of it, that's pretty much all of it, was earned after his 50th birthday. Whoa. So this wasn't about one big win early on. This was about something else entirely.
All right, so let's run a little thought experiment. On the left, you've got the real Warren Buffett, who has been investing for a crazy long time, 75 years. On the right, let's imagine a different Buffett. He's got the exact same skills, but he lives a more normal life. He starts at 30 and retires at 60.
So here's the key. His skill is identical. He's still a genius, still pulling in those amazing 22% annual returns. The only thing we're changing is time, the runway he has for his money to grow. So what do you think? What would his net worth be?
The answer's just wild. $11.9 million. Not billion, million. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a fantastic amount of money for anybody, but compared to his real fortune, it's just a tiny little fraction.
That's a 99.9% difference. And that one fact just lays it all bare. Yeah, his skill is investing, but his real secret weapon, the thing nobody else could match, it was time. He just gave his money an incredibly long time to do its thing.
And if that doesn't convince you, let's really put this to the test. Let's compare Buffett to another investor who, by one really important metric, was actually way, way better.
Meet Jim Simons. He's a brilliant mathematician who started a hedge fund, and his fund has compounded money at an unbelievable 66% per year. Just look at this chart. He absolutely dwarfs Buffett's 22%. By this measure, Simons is in a whole other league.
So he must be richer, right? Nope, not even close. Simons is worth around $21 billion, while Buffett, with his so-called lower returns, is worth over 4 times as much. And why? It's the same story, time. Simons didn't really hit his investing stride until he was 50, which gave him less than half the time for that compounding magic to really work.
Okay, so if this principle is so powerful enough to cover planets and ice and build these insane fortunes, why is it so hard for us to get it? Why don't we see it everywhere? Well, it really comes down to a fundamental flaw in how our brains work. We are wired for linear thinking. We totally get adding things up. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. But we are really bad at exponential thinking, where things multiply. The growth of an ice sheet or Buffett's fortune isn't addition, it's multiplication. And the results of that process are they're not intuitive. They feel impossible.
Data storage is such a perfect example of this. You know, for the first 40 years or so, from the 50s to the 90s, hard drives got bigger, but it was kind of a slow, steady, linear climb. But then, compounding kicked in. And in the next 29 years, capacity exploded by 100 million megabytes. This kind of runaway growth just sneaks up on us. It can fool even the absolute smartest people. Back in 2004, a genius like Bill Gates questioned why anyone would ever need Gmail's then huge 1 gigabyte of storage. He was still anchored in that old, linear way of thinking.
So after all this, what's the big takeaway? What's the one lesson we should burn into our brains when it comes to building wealth or really achieving any long-term goal?
It's this. Stop trying to hit home runs. Seriously, the goal is not to earn the absolute highest, most jaw-dropping returns you can. That's usually just a recipe for taking on way too much risk and then crashing and burning. The real key, the actual secret to building wealth, is to get pretty good, consistent returns that you can hang on to for a very long time, because that's the environment where compounding goes absolutely wild.
You know, you could make a case that the most valuable investing book ever written would only be 1 page long, and its title would just be Shut Up and Wait. Because a lot of the time, the smartest, most powerful move you can make is to just do nothing and let time and compounding do all the heavy lifting for you.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to chew on. When you think about your own goals, your finances, whatever, are you playing a short game or are you playing the long game? Is your strategy built to chase those quick, flashy wins, or is it designed to harness the slow, patient, and unstoppable power of a marathon? The answer to that? Well, it just might change everything.